The family of Tyrie Nichols is marking a painful anniversary of their own this weekend. 1 year ago today, the 29-year-old was brutally beaten and hospitalized after a violent traffic stop and arrest by Memphis police. Nichols would die just 3 days later. 5 of the Memphis police officers that participated in the arrest are facing state and federal charges over their roles in the confrontation. Joining me now is civil rights attorney, Attorney General of Black America, Ben Crump, representing the family of Tyrie Nichols. With him are Ravon Wells, Tyrie Nichols' mother, and Rodney Wells, his stepfather. Let me go to you first, Mr. and Mrs. Wells, and Attorney Crump. We thank you all for joining us all tonight. But let me go with you, Ravon. I had the solemn honor of eulogizing your son last year, and I've gotten to know you and your family. You and Mr. Wells have come to our conferences, we've talked, and as some of the Memphis police officers that brutalized your son have been charged now by the state of Tennessee and the Justice Department, there's some expectation of maybe a measure of justice. But how are you and your family enduring? Tonight, 1 year after your son's death, what are your feelings? Because as unfortunate, I've had to do many of these, you can never replace the loss. And people, when the cameras are gone, don't understand the pain doesn't leave with that.
Well, Reverend Al, thank you for having us. 2023, this past year has been a very difficult year. This has been the worst year of my life. I had to bury my son. I've been trying to, as a mother, to keep it all together because I do have 3 other kids that I have to stay strong for. But it's been very difficult. It's been very difficult because this shouldn't have never happened. And we're still trying to understand why all this happened.
And it was a close family. I mean, like you, Rodney, he worked with you on the job and he would come home for lunch. I mean, I found this was a very close family.
Yes, sir. You know, Tyrie was my buddy because, you know, me personally, I don't have a son. So Tyrie, once we connected, was my soulmate. He was my son. So once I got him on at FedEx, that was a blessing for both of us because I enjoyed working with him and showing him the ropes, basically.
Now, Ravon and Rodney, you were guests of President Biden at last year's State of the Union address. He exclaimed that something good must come from Tyrie's death. In a few minutes, we'll hear from the pastor of Mother Emanuel AME Church, where President Biden will speak tomorrow, nearly 9 years after a racist massacre that killed 9 black worshipers, one of them the pastor. As the president campaigns for re-election, needing black support, what do you want to hear from him tomorrow as far as priorities, Ravon?
What I would like to hear as a priority is getting that George Floyd bill passed, because I definitely feel if that bill had passed, maybe our son would be still living today. It's just too many children being murdered by police officers today, and no one is being held accountable. As of today, it's been a year, and I still don't know why they pulled Tyrie over in the first place. I still don't have that answer, even after it being 1 year. No one could tell me why they pulled my son over in the first place.
Attorney General Crump, let me go ahead, Ravon, I'm sorry.
So that would be the first thing that I would want him to address is making police officers accountable for their actions.
Attorney General Black America Crump, you and I have worked on many of these cases for a decade and a half together. What does justice look like? I mean, what do you want to see happen? You've been a gladiator on many of these cases, many that don't even hit the media. I think people think you get a lot of publicity, or I get, but they don't realize the cases that never hit the press. What do you want to see happen as we go into this election year that could be one of the things that the people running for Congress, Senate, and President have to address and commit to?
Yeah, and Reverend Al, it's hard to believe it's been a year. And since we called you and asked for your help in making the world know that Tyrie Nichols' life mattered. And it's profound, the question you asked, because what would justice look like? You mentioned about all those other cases where nobody ever says those dead Black brothers and sisters' names. But as Ms. Ravon has often said, their children matter just as much as everybody else's children. So justice will be getting the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed finally, having substantive police reform, having the Tyrie Nichols amendment for officers having a duty to intervene when they see a criminal act happening. Reverend Al, we're set for trial and the federal cases in May, and then the state cases in August. And just like we did with George Floyd, we'll probably have to have you come to Memphis, Rev, to keep the attention on, because people have a tendency to forget about these tragedies. They try to sweep them under the rug. So justice for Tyrie is about justice for everybody, all those families. That's what we need.
Well, we are certainly going to follow this. I wanted to talk a year later. I want the nation to never forget Tyrie, and we'll be there for trial. Ravon and Rodney knows that I'll be there whenever they call, and we need to go through that together because it's a painful time for them. And you, Attorney Crump, for all that you do. Blessings in the new year. Ravon and Rodney Wells, thank you both for coming on despite the painful day you're going through. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, sir.